Good evening.
Hello.
Here's to our tea.
We all have the same one today.
We do.
Cheers.
This is, and one more.
Oh.
Jake.
Good luck.
We have, what tea do we have?
Don't ask me.
Remind us, it was from New Zealand. I know you didn't
It's
give
got
it to me.
kawa in it, but it had
Kawa.
a name, didn't it? I can't
I
remember.
don't know. It's kawa, lemongrass,
Ginger. That's nice.
and another mystery thing that I can't remember. I'm sure it's delicious. No,
It is.
no coffee at this time of night.
No. I'm tempted. I would do a half calf, Luke.
Would you?
I can do
I
half
wish.
calf now.
Okay.
Yeah, I know.
There we go.
I know. We invented half calf in case you missed it. You might
we-
know that.
How do you do half?
Sorry, no, that's total lie. Sorry,
Completely.
taking credit for something that I didn't do.
Oh, now is that
I invented it. It was me.
Tell me about it then.
No, yeah. So I met this strange woman, and then I claimed her coffee.
My coffee. I can't even talk now.
Half calf is as simple as half decaf, half full calf.
Yes, it is. Yeah. And you didn't invent it.
And
No,
you
it didn't.
and you make it. You can do it with fresh coffee, or are you talking the instant stuff?
Well, I can put it in my brand new tiny cafetiere.
It's very, very dinky.
It did. And you have it in your special machiney thing.
I do. So I tend to put 2 packets, so a decaf and a full calf, mix them up, put them in my coffee jar, and then have just a scoop of that. But you could do it. You could mix it in a cafetiere if you wanted.
Okay.
Just means, half the fun in every cup. So you can have twice as many.
Or, like I do, you can have the full job, but just stop at about 1 o'clock.
Well, that's true. I don't know if I know when to stop though with coffee, so it just gives me permission to have more. Anyway.
So here we are, herbal
We are.
tea with Katie and Luke and special guest Rae Hurst.
Yay! We've been wanting to do this for ages. Yeah.
It's a real honour to be here, to be on this side of the screen.
I know.
Because I usually watch you guys if I get the chance to watch live. So, yeah, feels weird being on this side of the screen.
No. So Rae, introduce yourself. Who are you and what do you do?
What was that game show?
What's your name and where do you come
What's
from?
your name? Where do you come from?
Priscilla.
It's not surprising. I think blind date, isn't it?
Yeah. I'm Rae, and I am a counsellor. I work out of the Wellbeing Centre, the LV Wellbeing Centre. So I do face-to-face sessions there. I also do walk and talk, or I can meet people on Zoom. And I have a website, which is spaceforyou.com. And yeah, I do that. I also see people at QA hospitals, see the staff, so I do that a couple of half days a week. So that's kind of me.
And you have good conversations with us off screen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're like, get her on the
Yeah.
screen.
Super engaged, commenting.
Yeah, whenever I hear Luke and Katie talking, and sometimes I'm doing other things, like I might be working on my laptop or whatever, not talking to a client, and I'll be listening, and then something will capture me, and I'll get on there and put a comment on, and there's a little bit of to and fro. So then they grabbed me. invited me in.
That's it.
So you and I have done talks on screen before a couple of times. But this is actually the first time you've ever met Katie.
Well, we have.
Oh,
we met at one of your events.
I do remember.
So your
that.
metaphysics event, we met
I do
at that
remember,
one.
yes.
So we bumped into each other, but we were...
Yes,
In an audience.
we're in
Yeah.
opposite sides of the room, I think. Yeah.
So, but yes, first proper time we've met.
Yeah.
So it's nice to meet
It
you.
is very nice.
So we're going to talk about selfishness. Like how I invented half calf.
Yeah. Keep going.
So selfishness, what does that even mean?
Well,
Why has
I
it come
looked
up?
up the dictionary
Yeah. Oh, did you?
definition,
Oh my
She
goodness.
brought
right?
notes.
She's made notes. We feel very disorganised as a result. This is great.
So the dictionary definition says selfishness is he or she who only cares about themselves and not about other people, only thinks of their own advantages.
Me, that sounds like self-centeredness rather than selfishness.
Yes.
Do you think?
Yeah, well, I think there are lots of ways to look at it. I think it's anything with the word self in it. I was thinking about this on the way over. Tends to be a little bit seen negatively potentially. Do you think? What do you think about that?
I think generally,
Yes. Yeah, I think so. And I was trying to work this out, whether it's a kind of societal thing, and at risk of being what's the word, contentious, quite Christian based, in terms of that kind of don't ever think of yourself, put others before yourself always. But it's kind of got skewed, and it's really interesting, because there's such mixed messages, aren't there? Because we're given those messages about, strive, push forward, do the best that you can, all of that. But don't be selfish.
How dare you think of yourself at this moment? Yeah.
Really, I think it's just really confusing. And then when for me, there's the kind of the concept of selfishness becomes a thing, I suppose, when I'm talking with people about self-care, because that immediately brings up for them, that feels really selfish. And I think that was why I was kind of thinking, this is such an interesting thing to kind of discuss or debate, because...
Sorry, one of my children is crying. So I'm going to let you discuss and debate this while
we will carry on. I'll hold the thought. No worries.
It's such an interesting thing, but between, where's that line between self-care and what selfish?
Yeah.
I mean, whatever selfish is.
Exactly. Yeah. Do you find that the people that you talk to who have those feelings, that sounds selfish, are they at a particular stage in their life? Have they had certain life experiences that have made them feel that way, do you think? Or do you think it's a bit more general than that we're just a bit reluctant to put ourselves first?
Good question. I think overall there's a reluctance to put ourselves first. I think sometimes it can be attached to lack of self-worth. It can be attached to kind of all sorts of messages that we're given at a younger age.
Yeah, that's true.
But that's all reinforced generally anyway.
Yeah.
That there's... It's... Yeah, I find it really fascinating, because there's something in here, and I kind of jotted it down because it was just my thinking, that self-care is kind of like a balance between your personal needs and the needs of other people.
Yes.
So if you've got healthy self-care, my view, so please chip in. But if you've got healthy self-care, you are able to balance your own needs alongside the needs of those around you.
Yes.
Yeah.
But you need to have the self-worth, don't you, to prioritise yourself enough and get that balance right. Because if you don't value yourself and your needs,
they will be at the bottom of the pile anyway. And then and to have healthy self-care, you have to have some boundaries.
Yeah, that's very true.
And then interestingly, the flip side, when I was thinking about this, is often selfishness is around ignoring the boundaries of others.
Okay, that's very interesting.
I was just playing around with this, that if it can be really, really selfish to ignore the fact that somebody has boundary, that they maybe don't like doing something, or don't want to be put in that situation, or I don't know. I can't think of anything specific at the moment. There obviously was when I was thinking about it. So to deliberately, so it's almost like maybe selfishness is about kind of deliberately, mindfully ignoring the boundaries or the needs of others.
That's a very good point, because I think sometimes we can be guilty of accidentally, you know, we mistakenly
Absolutely.
do something that comes across as selfish when actually that wasn't our intention. But, you know, if you willfully take what you want from a situation, then I guess, yes, you're right, that's ignoring somebody else's needs in that circumstance. So you were just talking about what selfishness means in the context of taking from other people and ignoring boundaries.
Oh, boundaries.
That's lovely. Do you know, I didn't know the word boundaries, I don't think, till I was, because I'm nearly 44. I didn't know it till I was in my 40s. That was a completely new concept to me.
I think
What,
it's
the word, or just the whole thing?
The word in that context, what it means of having, you know, boundaries between you and other people, and what's acceptable behaviour to you, and sort of being firm with other people. Well, no, can you not do that? Or that, setting that boundary is completely new terminology.
Well, I think just societally, it became a bit of a buzzword.
Okay.
A bit like narcissist.
Yes.
Or self-care, or anything, like all of these
we
words.
just use that word, didn't we? Self-care.
All of these words, but I think that they're quite new on the scene as such. They're quite used for marketing, used for discussion topics, very much like we're doing. You know, used to help people. I think social media, of course, will use these things as trends. And of course these things can do a wonderful amount of good, actually, because when they come onto your radar, like boundaries, you think, oh, actually, that's struck a chord, that makes sense, I can use that, I can do something with that, and I can talk about it, because socially people now know what that means. And so I think that when these things do become buzzwords, actually they can be incredibly positive.
Yes, really helpful, and for young people particularly, you know, because I know, like, working with young people now, they get that concept of boundaries, they understand it, because, you know, it's on the socials, isn't it? It's talked about. So then you've already got a foundation to work from with them.
Very true.
I think if you scrolled back 5-10 years, it'd be like,
you wouldn't
what?
see those words. Exactly. So I think to that point, I don't think that you were alone in only discovering
Probably. This is
4 years ago. I think probably for a lot of us that word came into our vocabulary at that point.
Yeah, it's very true. I follow a lady who is a boundary coach. I mean, she's amazing, but that is her specialism. And so it's really insightful.
Even life coach.
Yeah, I know, and I don't even like the word life coach, and I am one.
But I mean, even that wasn't on the radar till about 10 years ago.
No, and it's become so well worn, I think, and that's possibly a risk, isn't it, when things like self-care and self-worth and boundaries and life coach become so hijacked and used by other people who maybe, I don't know, seem to attribute different meanings to them.
I find
tune out.
I find that about the word narcissist. I feel like if anyone's now in an argument or disagreement with someone, they just throw in "you're a narcissist" and it stops it, even if they're not. You know?
There we go.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, there is a lot of there's a lot of labelling and kind of mental health diagnosing that goes on left, right, and centre.
Exactly.
But actually, narcissism is we're starting going off topic, but that is a mental health diagnosis.
It is.
It is.
Yeah.
Narcissistic personality disorder.
Yeah, when you sent me that podcast, it was really good.
Well, that's very good. I'll send you the podcast as well.
We'll link it on here.
Yeah,
just
great.
to go off topic, but of course we always do.
Yeah, not onto biscuits yet, though, are we?
Not onto biscuits, no. But we didn't talk about our mugs.
No. What does yours say?
Mine says "Shantae, you stay," and if you know the reference, you know the reference.
I don't know the reference. Mine says top of the nice list, because of course it's April, nothing to do with Christmas, is it?
Ho ho ho.
Mine has Sega amusements, but on this side it has Sonic.
Oh, lovely.
It's my daughter's mug. She's
Powerful
obsessed
little
with Sonic.
Sonic.
We love Sonic.
So I missed most of the selfishness conversation. Selfishly, I had to go upstairs and attend to my daughter. Yeah, she's got an ear infection. She's right.
Oh, sweetheart.
She just sweat through her pajamas, bless her. So I just changed her.
Poor little love.
So I think that there's a real, I don't know if you call this, but a real difference between selfish and self-centered. And I think I kind of touched on this at the beginning when you read the description. Because for me, actually, selfish is a wonderful attribute. Like, if you can put yourself first, if we all just put ourselves first, everyone be cared for effectively.
I agree.
You know,
Yes, this is true.
there's only these expectations that we have of others, and expectations we put on ourselves to adhere to others' expectations, that creates the friction, the tension, the stress, the dis-ease. I just think if we were just focused on selfishness, but from a place of health and well-being and stress reduction and self-love and compassion and all of those things that fall under the umbrella of selfish, I think we'd be a damn sight happier.
Gosh, I mean, I completely agree with you. And I was only thinking on the way over, because this is another phrase that gets used a lot. It starts with you, but it does. It starts with us, and especially if you're, for us as parents, I don't know about your family situation, right? But you have to be well. You have to be mentally as well as possible, physically well, so you can look after your loved ones, right? Because if you weren't, everything would fall apart. So that's selfish. You need to be.
Can I do a reference from the mug?
Go on then.
Okay, so if you don't know Shantae You Stay, it's RuPaul's Drag Race, which in itself has become a bit of a cliche. Like,
it has,
we don't watch it anymore. But however, there is a point, a phrase in there that really serves a purpose for this conversation, which is if you can't love somebody else, if you can't love yourself, how in the hell are you going to love somebody else?
Totally agree. Yeah.
And that's what we never do. We always, as parents, we put our children first, because that's what we're taught to do. But if we're unhealthy in ourselves, we're not doing the best for our children at all.
No, and also not modelling the right kinds of behaviours. I think we often overlook that the things that you do, they will copy in some way, even if they don't consciously realise, they will pick up behaviours. And if they see someone who's running ragged, trying to please everybody else all the time,
what are they going to do?
Yeah, what are they going to think that they should do when they get older if they do the same?
And I, without children, but have been with children and worked with children a lot, but I have seen that play out where it just even in kind of my personal life, where somebody's had a mother who's completely focused on their children, and then the next generation, that mother completely focuses on her children to the detriment of her own health and well-being. And it comes back to that balance, doesn't it? That it's the oxygen mask thing, isn't it?
Oh yeah,
really.
It's a good analogy,
that analogy of you need to put your own oxygen mask on first.
Yeah. It's interesting you should say about what's modelled, because my mum very much, I think, sacrificed herself for us kids and kind of got a bit lost. Her identity was a little bit lost, I feel. She just threw herself into being a mum, and that's fine, but I sort of don't think she was completely happy. I think there was a bit of her that was unfulfilled. And so when I had kids, I sort of felt that I had to just abandon myself and everything that I did before, and I literally did drop so many parts of my life.
And lost yourself a bit.
Completely. And then I think I expected some sort of magical, I don't know, like Disney princess. Oh, I'll just get this wonderful, overwhelming feeling of motherly love and my life will be perfect. And, I was naive because that didn't happen.
Didn't happen for me
either. No, the oxytocin did not flow. And I just thought, oh gosh, why am I so sad when I've got everything I thought I wanted, But it's because my life had completely changed overnight and I'd abandoned everything about myself. So I had to learn how to put myself back together again and take little steps to be me.
And I guess those bits that you abandoned were the bits that nourished you.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you kind of stopped nourishing your soul.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Completely.
And a lot of it is because you have to, and you've got a new baby, you just have no
You're
time.
in survival mode.
Absolutely. You don't sleep, you literally can't even get dressed some days. So it just sort of, But, I was in a band, I used to sing in a band, I just stopped that. I used to go out with friends, just stopped that. You can't even leave the house. I want to go out the house. Oh, it's going to take me an hour to get out of the house. So your life just becomes completely turned upside down.
Yeah.
And I think you just think you need to carry on doing that because that's what's required. But actually, if we modelled a different way to our children and sort of supported them to be themselves as they become parents, that would be transformational, I think.
I think I said to you before, I've been parenting 6 years now, and I don't think I even got my head around it for the first 5 years. I really think it's only in very recent months that I've started to go, oh, all right, I can do this.
So what shifted?
I don't know. I was just so lost for the first 5 years. And I started, we have 2 children, so when we adopted our first child, what nobody really talked about was post-adoption depression. And we just think, you know, postnatal depression, it must be, assumptions-wise, it must be a hormonal thing. So, of course, I can't be susceptible to that because I haven't birthed a child. But, no, I fell the first time with it, got over it within a year, and then actually got to a pretty good place. Felt like I started to know what I was doing. And then we adopted our second child from birth this time, so I hadn't had a newborn. That was a shock. And then actually had my accident and stuff. So I just kind of really for 5 years was such a blur. And I was preaching all this time, self-care, self-love, self-care, self-love. This is my job, preach it, preach it, preach it. And what was I doing behind the scenes? Burning out, completely unstable mental health, absolutely not doing the best parenting, and just not being a great husband, just really absolutely fundamentally broken. And I only think that in the last probably 6 to 9 months, I really started to go, oh, actually I'm all right. I got through it, I learnt a lot, I've grown, I'm modelling better behaviour for my children, and I finally feel like I'm getting it. But I don't think people talk about that stuff enough.
No.
I don't think people, I think you just get into, well, I must do for them. I don't put myself on the back burner, and don't ever admit failure or weakness. Just suck it up. And I think that's the culture of people, from my experience with young children, is that we're all struggling and that we put ourselves last. And so if I could retrospectively go back and do that or teach myself a lesson, it would be bloody well practice what you preach.
Yes, yeah. And be honest about how you're feeling. But which also means being comfortable to be honest, doesn't it? Which means feeling that you'll be accepted if you're honest, that it's okay to share that it's difficult, because I think that's also a problem, isn't it? And I sort of understand where you're coming from. I remember very early on having kids, I put some Facebook post up about how I was the happiest I'd ever been in my life. And I was lying, I was totally lying to myself about that. Really was not happy, but I didn't feel I could tell anybody that.
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean. I've never felt that I've been able to... In fact, actually, meeting you, because you and I have pretty honest conversations about parenting, has probably been a big factor, actually, because I don't have a lot of parenting friends that I feel like I can have proper conversations with. And I've tried having honest conversations with people, and then I get the look, and I'm like, oh, I can't go there. You know, but I just don't think there is enough honesty around it, in my opinion. And again, honesty is a massive part of selfishness and self-care. It's really about recognising the truth of the matter. And I think the whole time we've got our head in the sand, or we're shoving it down, you know, it's just getting worse and worse and worse and worse.
So just where you said, Katie, you put the post up on Facebook, I'm wondering, wow, so do you think... And I'm not dissing social media at all, but I'm just curious about, well, does social media then really invite that dishonesty and invite that ignoring what's really going on because the shop front has to look beautiful? And
Very possibly. I think it absolutely, you know, the Instagrammable life, sort of everything's perfect when underneath the sea or behind the scenes it really isn't. I think, you know, also I take responsibility for that because I was not being honest with myself, and I was not in a place at that time where I could really say who I was. And I think because I'd committed to this, you know, I've had children, right? I need to just sort of suck it up and get on with it. I can't complain because this was my choice, right? I've got myself in this situation, made my bed and I'm going to lie in it. All these, you know, lovely little sayings that run through your brain. And so I think there was a part of me was also testing to see how it felt to put that out there. If I'm thinking about it now, like, I'm going to say that, does that feel good? What am I going to get back from that? Oh, approval. Okay, but how real is that approval? Oh, it's just so toxic, you know, and I can see it now.
But addictive as well, I guess, in a way, isn't it? Yeah.
So, but then it's a spiral. So once you stop being that person, then that's the person you feel you have to keep being.
Yeah.
And I don't really know what changed. At some point, I just couldn't keep pretending any longer. And don't get me wrong, I love my children to death. But that first initial shock of that first stranger, like I've said it to people before, it's like having an incontinent old stranger just move into your house and sit there, and you can't leave them alone, and suddenly you're housebound with a complete whinging, crying, smelly, miserable person, and you can't do anything about it. And that's the reality, except that they're tiny, you know, a bit more portable. So it's a huge shock to the system. We do need to be more honest. And here's to feeling better, can I just say?
Thank you. And here's to being honest. Because for me, I just think that's the key. I think that social media in some ways can do a lot of damage, because I've noticed if people have been vulnerable or honest online, you then get the people that come in, oh, well, you can't do that, or you can't say that, and what do you mean you don't love your child? Or, you know, but I think actually we talked about this through the adoption process, and that's some of the best conversations I had about honesty in the adoption process was actually with social workers. Because of course they're breathing down our necks when we adopt. But you know, actually we could have those honest conversations where like, actually love doesn't come instantly,
No.
and you don't have to feel guilty about that. That's very normal.
That's interesting. So there's that kind of romantic idea, isn't there? Like our eyes locked and that was it. And we kind of get raised with those notions as well, don't we? So I guess
Love
if
at
we
first
don't,
sight.
and between, you know, a mother and a child, or a father and a child, like this bond. Well,
I was just more like, what do I do with it?
it's leaking.
But actually, that was a real saving grace to me that I could have those honest conversations with social workers, because they've of course seen it all, haven't they?
Yes.
And they're actually very realistic in that respect, which I really appreciate. It's probably social worker dependent, but I certainly had social workers work with us that I felt I could have those conversations with, which was great. But I certainly didn't necessarily get it from other parents. And I think that there was a lot of masking, I think, about like we're all struggling, but we all don't want to talk about it, but we're all thinking the same thing, and it's just like the elephant in the room sometimes. And then you're like, oh, we'll just sing a little song, do a nursery rhyme, and clap our hands, and everyone's happy. Lovely to see you, bye-bye. And that was as much as the parenting kind of meet-up community ended up being. But I also don't know, there's a slight difference in that I'm not a mum. And it is very much a mum's club out there with babies. It's hard to find a more dad-orientated community. So that was a slight barrier for me. So you may not have had the same experiences.
No, not necessarily exactly the same, but I do remember that sort of silent, competitive, like unspoken competitiveness. You know, I went to a mum gathering, and at the time I'd stopped, we're going completely off topic now, but I didn't breastfeed my baby. I really struggled because I was really struggling, so I was bottle feeding, and the looks that I got for bottle feeding, I was looked at like, and I felt uncomfortable. So it's not this, I couldn't be honest. Well, I was being honest because I was there, but I couldn't talk to anyone about it. There was no connection, and I felt rubbish, and I cried all the way home when I drove home. So, you know, I get that.
So you were being selfish, feeding your baby with a
how
bottle.
dare I? Yeah, choose my needs. Well, actually, I'm actually also choosing my baby's needs because they need to be fed, and I'm finding the compromise that works best for my mental health. Because being stuck to a baby for 10 hours, which it was at times, just wasn't working for me because I was going to lose it.
But you know, selfishness is judgment, isn't it? Really, and I think we should be looking at selfishness as self-preservation, but what we really experience is other people's judgment, or even fear of other people's judgment. So the looks that you got for bottle feeding might not have been judgmental at all, but your perception was. And I had a similar thing. I went to a parenting group, and I accidentally made very awkward eye contact with a woman that was breastfeeding, and I felt so uncomfortable that I thought that I'd offended her, and then I got some looks of some other parents, and then I never went back. So then I was trying to build this community for my own health, you know, with other parents, and I just couldn't do it because I just felt so alienated and like I'd made a mother feel uncomfortable. But again, it was probably all in my head and in me, rather than the actual reality of what others were thinking.
This is true.
It's the fear of the judgment.
which is our own judgment of ourselves, perhaps.
Yeah, because and just hearing that, it's about how that narrative grows, isn't it? We create that story.
It's such a lonely place if you can't speak to someone. It does, and you're of course awake at night a lot, and then that's the worst time to think.
Yes.
No sleep anyway.
Yeah. But judgment is very much because even when you think of selfishness, if you were to take our personal judgments, for example, what I think is selfish may not be what you think is selfish. So actually, it's through the filter of
your own lens.
Totally.
Exactly.
And yet, it colours so much of life and limits so much of life for people. And I've been there. I know, like you, it took me a long time to recognise that it was okay to have boundaries, that it was okay to not put myself at the bottom of the pile, all of those things, and then to really kind of think about well what is selfish and what is, I like the word self-preservation that rather than self-care actually, what is important for me to keep me going, preserved, and what is selfish. And it comes back to, I suppose, selfish is when I deliberately do something that I know is really going to hurt or harm somebody else for my own ends, So if I don't know, wanted something from your house and I knew it was really precious to you and I just
took it.
I took it. That's pretty selfish. But that, that's a kind of an extreme example. But there's something kind of intent. There's an intent, I think, if you're thinking of selfishness in its purest form, isn't it? Everything else is perhaps more about our preservation, but we don't recognise it.
I think something that's just cropped into my mind is, when you hear a speech about somebody or someone's honouring someone, or even in a eulogy, and people say, oh, they were so selfless, and it's really praised. I don't know why that just popped into my mind.
Do you know what? The best eulogy I've ever heard was the uncle of someone I know, and his wife said, he was a miserable bastard, but he was my miserable bastard. And I loved that because she was completely honouring who he was. Yeah. That was him, but she loved him anyway.
Yeah.
I know, it was fantastic because you're right, because the rest of the time it's all about, Luke was an amazing person. He was just so incredible, and he was always so kind, and it wouldn't ever say anything that was seen negative in any way. What is it? Don't speak ill of the dead. Well, we all have those black and white sides, those light and dark sides, don't
embrace
we?
it all.
Yeah.
I was at the hospital, I don't know, a couple of years back in a waiting room, and I remember, someone from some executive committee member or whatever come in and rounded all the team up and did this whole thing about you've won team of the year, or whatever, or team of the month. And you've got it for your dedication of working loads of extra hours and going above and beyond, and it was all of this extra stuff, and then they got awarded for effectively burning themselves out.
Oh my goodness.
And I just thought to myself, there's something really toxic in this. And then everyone in the waiting room is going, hey. And I'm sat there like, oh, that sounds horrific. It's like, I wouldn't want to work in this team. And because they were just praising people for give. And the company were going, take.
Yes.
And that was what was being praised, this selflessness.
Yes.
And I'm like, oh, that feels really uncomfortable. But everyone else is just clapping along. And I just thought, I don't know how I'd feel about that.
Oh, and that really strikes a chord, given that I work with staff members, who work in the hospital. So I kind of really, it really resonates in terms of that burnout and that expectation. But I don't think it just sits like in the hospital. I think the work ethic that we're kind of brought up on, it is about, you work hard, you live to work, don't you? Not work to live. You live to work. You get out there and you graft every single day, and you give it your all, whatever you're doing, and businesses expect that. I've been in sort of corporate social care positions that you give the hours that are worked are phenomenal.
I remember this. So years ago, my background's marketing, and I remember going to visit a very big technology company, and there was a lady there showing us around, and she said, "Oh, our canteen's lovely. It's subsidised, so I don't even have to get much shopping in at home." And I was like, "Oh, that's great." She said, "Oh, they have a shower, so if I want to have a shower at work, I can. Oh, and they also have a room where you can go and have a sleep." And I'm like,
so she's living it.
You're living it. And that was just like this big American technology company, and she was gushing about how wonderful it was. Yeah. And I just remember thinking, even then, which would be about 15 years ago, what? Why are you here so much? Go and have a family and be with your friends or whatever. Don't live here.
Look, as a former HR person, I've been that person doing that show round. I've been that person presenting that award. But I was also always the person that went home when it turned 5 o'clock and then got frowned upon for doing it, but not caring, because I was like, hey, I have a life and I like going home.
Yeah, because that's where it's at,
and
right?
That's probably why I never got employed the month. But, it's cultural, as you say. I mean, the example I gave with the hospital, and they're one of the most overworked industries, of course, but it's everywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's everywhere.
And it's still, I was going to say it's still around. I think since COVID, there's been a real shift, particularly in the kind of the younger, people in their 20s or so, who, and this is just my experience, so it may be different. You take, I just get one slice of it, who are making different choices about kind of how they run their lives and manage their lives. And maybe that's that they see parents and grandparents who have worked and worked and worked and worked and worked to what ends. There's that classic, isn't there, that people retire and then not long after drop dead.
Yeah.
And also that kind of concept of not live to work, but actually work to live. So just work enough that you can have a life well lived.
Yeah.
Now, is that selfish? There's, because that is also viewed as selfish. And I know that from feedback, where people say, well, even parents say that to that kind of generation of, well, that's completely selfish. You're not kind of doing your bit
being
out there.
Being a good consumer or a good capitalist.
a good member of society.
I've been called selfish for going self-employed and not going back to permanent work after having children.
And what was the rationale in that, in terms of the selfishness?
Because I should be contributing more to the home, because I should be modelling for my children. I'm like, well, actually, a traditional family would have, when it was affordable, would have one full-time working person and one stay-at-home parent when it was affordable. But we live in a world now where it's not. And so you do have to have two working parents. But I don't feel that I should be judged for that, because it's my and my husband's decision that I'm self-employed, that I have a lifestyle business, that I do what I do, and it fits in around the kids. But I've been judged for that so many times. It was even brought up today in a coffee meeting I had with someone.
Oh, gosh.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
I find it so curious that people think they can judge.
Absolutely. In terms of, that comes back to boundaries, isn't it? Because that is really overstepping your boundary. Because
that's very true.
Actually, it's none of my business how you conduct your life, as long as you're not murdering anybody and, you know,
Not
kind
this
of
week.
doing well, not that I'm aware of, yeah. But how you conduct your life is nobody's business but yours. So that's really pushing those boundaries and stepping in there. I'm really curious how you responded.
Oh, let's not do this.
You're gonna have to tell me later.
Okay.
From self-preservation, I responded.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, you know, actually, it doesn't even need a response, does it? Because as you say, it's not their business, so it doesn't even dignify a response. Just.
No, I believe the term that I used today was, I'm not going to discuss my relationship with you.
Okay. Oh,
That was a good boundary.
Yeah.
Like,
Good for you.
back off.
Good for
Yeah.
you.
But, you know, it's interesting, right? That people just think that they can look at someone because you don't work a full-time job that then view you as selfish. It's fascinating to me.
Well, and then I suppose if you think about it, okay, there's something about the mirror there, isn't there? You know, well, what's that bringing up for them? So that they that's uncomfortable, or is it envy, or something? There's something there that then enables that firing that shot at you.
That's very interesting. I've certainly noticed that the more comfortable I am in myself, the more I see the judgments as they are thrown upon me from other people, and I just go, oh, that's not me, that's you, isn't it? Okay, let's just look at that with curiosity and just let it wash over me.
Yeah.
You know, you realise, don't you, other people's judgment is a reflection of their own self-judgment.
Yes.
And the other thing there is, if you were to think it were actually about you and take it to heart, that's the selfishness in itself, because that's the self-centeredness of saying
it's all about me.
Because I invented half calf.
TM.
Yeah. Oh, well, do you know what? I think that, I have no idea what the time is.
No.
We probably could talk all night long about it, but should we wrap up and maybe do a take two another time?
Let's do it. Let's do it again.
Okay. Yeah.
Great. Well, it was lovely. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Rae.
Thank you for inviting me. Thank you for watching.
And let us know what you think about selfishness.
Yeah, as always.
There you go.
See you
Bye-bye.
soon.
Good night.
Bye.
Did it finish?